Well, we finally have a Speaker of the House. Who is he, and what's to know? Hi, I'm Pastor Marty. This is the Afternoon Drive. Absolutely nothing like it anywhere else on the internet. That's not just a bold proclamation. That's an absolute, undeniable statement of fact. I promise you aren't going to hear the rants, the ravings, and the reasonings like you're going to hear from me. So please subscribe to the channel. Smack the bell, click the word all to get notification of all of my rants and ravings, and make sure, please, like and share this video. That's how we get the word out that we're here. Thank you for being a part of the Afternoon Drive. So Mike Johnson, congressman from the state of Louisiana, is now the Speaker of the House. And just to kind of know who he is, what he's about, all you have to do is consider the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media's absolute unhinged overreaction to the fact that, well, he is now the Speaker of the House.
Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 118th Congress.
The House choosing Johnson a little less than an hour ago. The vote going by party lines. He failed to earn even one Democrat vote, but got votes from every Republican present, enough to push him over the majority. Now, Johnson has a long track record of opposing same-sex marriage and LGBTQ plus rights. He also has endorsed anti-abortion legislation that would effectively ban abortions nationwide after 6 to 7 weeks.
To be perfectly honest with you, I had no idea who this guy was until this week. But let's back things up and let's kind of recap how we got here. Matt Gaetz called for the removal of McCarthy. He got the votes. Democrats, of course, voted along with conservative members of the House, and McCarthy was gone. Now, we know that the Democrats did it to create upheaval, and for the last 3 weeks, all we've heard about is the upheaval within the Republican Party. Okay. Personally, I didn't have a problem with that. You know why? Because when they're in that state of upheaval, you know what they're not doing? Oh, yeah, taking our money and making life miserable for the rest of us, dreaming up new laws, policies, and mandates. So it doesn't bother me when the government is hobbled. That all said, there were several names that were floated. Jim Jordan wanted to make a run at it. They voted on him a couple of times. He couldn't clear the bench. I feel bad. I think Jim Jordan would have been an outstanding Speaker of the House, but the problem is he was so known for his principles that automatically, he alienated most of the Republicans on Capitol Hill because they are rhinos, and rhinos are nothing more than Democrats dressed in Republican drag. They're on the take, they're part of the grift, and they're really not there to make our lives better, other than they will vote for tax cuts because it benefits them. But when it comes to all the lip service they give us during campaign seasons about, being traditional, pro-life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, once they get to the hallowed halls of Congress, they go right along with whatever the Democrats want to do. They all go to the same cocktail parties. They are all in bed with the same lobbyists, taking the same corrupt money, and they're just all part of the sick game, and many of them are part of the ruling class oligarch, and those that aren't, they keep their mouths shut. They play the game because they're in on the grift. That's the Republican Party. But the conservatives, the ones that were really there willing to fight, and the MAGA conservatives, well, certainly the rhinos weren't going to allow that to happen. So they put up this guy, Tom Emmer. And let me just tell you something about Tom Emmer. He would have made McCarthy look like a MAGA Republican. That's how liberal Tom Emmer was. I think he's from Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. That's the land of Walter Mondale. And he would have been an absolute train wreck and a disaster. Now, Donald Trump had initially kind of thrown his support behind Emmer, but only because with Donald Trump, it wasn't an ideological thing. Donald Trump really saw the way the media was framing this, going on 3 weeks without a speaker, and he was worried that this was going to hurt, conservatives, Republicans running for congressional seats, that the American people would see them as a party in chaos and disarray. And so, Trump he had said the other day, if you guys nominated Jesus Christ himself, you wouldn't get him elected. I mean, that was pretty hard-hitting commentary there, and a astute observation. And he was right. The conservatives weren't going to go along, obviously, with a Tom Emmer, but they were hoping they would get enough of the rhinos on board and maybe pull a couple of Democrats over that they could get Tom Emmer in. But quickly, Donald Trump abandoned his, thumbs up to an Emmer because he's like, just get somebody in that chair. We don't care who it is. We'll figure out how to work with him once we get him there. Then the name Mike Johnson began to be floated, and immediately Donald Trump jumped from Emmer to Johnson. Now, he is taking a victory lap over that, and that's fine, but let me tell you what I think really was the cause of Emmer's oust and Johnson in. You, me, us, this alternative media. We talk a lot about how the police state and the fact that our kids are constantly, on their phones and streaming and what that's done to society. And there are certainly plenty of negative aspects to it. But there are a few positives. And one of the things is news happens now in real time, and we get informed of things real time. When Tom Emmer's name was being proposed that he was going to come up for a vote, you sprang into action. From what people are saying who are part of the Capitol Hill inner circle, they never saw anything like it. The phones went into meltdown mode, both at the Capitol switchboard and constituents who had the cell numbers of their elected officials. And they were screaming, "Don't you dare vote for Tom Emmer. Don't you dare, don't you dare, don't you dare." And literally within a couple of hours of his being nominated and all excited that, he was going to get his hands on that gavel and rule just like the male counterpart of Nancy Botox Pelosi, he withdrew his own name from consideration. The backlash was that hard, that swift, and I got a feeling there were some people out there, because you know how these things really work. Somebody out there had something on him, had some kind of dirt, had the proof, and said, yeah, if you go forward, we go public. And he backed away. So up came the name Mike Johnson. And conservatives, most of us, had no idea who he was. We began to look into things. When the New York Times hates your guts, that's usually a pretty good indication that, hey, I may be able to get on board with this guy. He's pro-life because he actually asked a Supreme Court justice, would you support abortion right up to the very moment the child could breathe breath on their own and be born? He's a Christian. Obviously, that makes him public enemy number one. Wow. A white male Christian, non-homosexual. Obviously, this guy is not fit to live. That's how the liberal intelligentsia sees him. He's an election denier. He's an election denier because he voted to decertify the election. Bum, ba-dum, bum. By the way, has anybody kept track of, other than Maxine Waters, Mad Max, and her James Brown hairdo, how many Democrats voted on not certifying the election results of Donald Trump when he beat Hillary Rotham Clinton? Now, there you go again, Pastor Marty, clouding the issue with facts. No, we have to paint this narrative that all of these Trump people are deranged lunatics trying to steal our democracy. Really? The protesters who showed up to hijack the government, who were completely unarmed. Let that sink in. And we've covered all that before, and I don't want to really get deep into that. But, of course, he's an election denier. He's got to go. Bottom line, what got him in, you responded. As you began to find out things about him, you started lighting up that switchboard, calling those congressional phone numbers that you had. He got every vote. And on paper, it looks like he's more conservative than Jim Jordan. But see, Jim Jordan was a known commodity. The rhinos went along because they heard loud and clear from the voting base, don't even think of running for re-election if you give us a guy like Tom Emmer. Don't even, and you have to know that behind the scenes McCarthy was pulling strings, because here's what McCarthy wanted. McCarthy, torpedoed Jim Jordan, despite the fact Jim Jordan voted for McCarthy. See, there is no honor on the side of the liberal ilk who just try to cling to power. You know that McCarthy was working behind the scenes to make sure that Jim Jordan didn't have votes. Because what McCarthy ultimately wanted was for the senator or the congressman to finally say, look, he had a 96% approval rating. We let this handful of conservatives vote him out. Let's figure out a way to bring McCarthy back and get back on track. That's what McCarthy wanted. What he didn't see coming was Mike Johnson, the unknown commodity. Nobody knew he was. And he's in. Unanimous vote. Why? Because the politicians heard loud and clear from you. This should hearten you. This should give you faith for another day. This should absolutely make your day. Now, before we get too premature with the victory lap here, we are going to have to wait and watch and see how Mike Johnson actually leads and governs. But I think it's a pretty safe bet that there is certainly someone now in that chair that it will give more than lip service to the quote-unquote MAGA agenda and conservative faith and ideals, that actually does believe them and will practice them. I'm not saying that we're going to be happy with every decision he makes, because the reality is at some point there is give and take and compromise to get certain things done. We have to understand that. That is reality. But a clear message has been sent to the rhinos. Your days are over. We, the people, are taking back our party because we, the people, are going to take back our country. And by the way, you progressives on the left, I hope you're watching this. I hope you're taking notes. But I know, once you get there, as AOC said, we're all in unison like a well-oiled machine. So you've forfeited the right to think, vote your conscience, and stand up for what you believe. You'll just go along with the party agenda, the status quo, and fund the military-industrial complex ad nauseum to infinity and beyond. And some of you progressives that have been waiting to hear the things that you heard out of Matt Gaetz's mouth come out of like a Bernie Sanders or someone else. May I personally extend an invitation for you and yours to come on over to our side? Come on in. The water's fine.